Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host Elio, and we are here with the brilliant Peter.
Hey, how are you? Glad to be here. Thank you.
Cool. Uh, Peter, could you introduce yourself and what you do within the band Red Moon Jam?
Sure. So my name is Peter. Last name is Lucibelli, and I'm from the United States in Connecticut to be exact. And I've been a pretty much lifelong instrumentalist, multi instrumentalist, and maybe over the last 15 years I started singing as well. And what Red Moon Jam is just another part of many of the musical pieces of me, which is a classic rock cover band, and we take our own take on a lot of classic songs and kind of heavy them up or maybe funk them out a little bit. And that's what I do for fun and money making on the side. I'm also a singer songwriter, occasionally do independent films, and I'm sorry, it's calling. Uh, occasionally I'll do independent films, and a lot of it is instrumental. So my projects, when I'm writing songs, tend to be on the heavier side to folky and everything in between. The instrumental music, independent film. I've done a lot of new age stuff. I've done clinical hypnotherapy soundtracks, and I try to be as versatile as possible. So Red Moon Jam is just a fun project to make money on because originals are so hard to make money on unless you're signed to a good label. So that's my answer there. What Red Moon Jam is.
Cool. Let's dive into some questions. As a kid, what were you listening to?
As a kid, oh man, my first love, and to this day, all these years later, is still the Beatles. I grew up on the Beatles. My sisters, who are older than me, would listen to the Beatles. Then it was the Monkees TV show, believe it or not. I loved the comedy in that, but I loved the songwriting, and I know the Monkees had a lot of help from top-notch musicians back then. But then it was Led Zeppelin. Then it was Yes, one of my favorite progressive bands, and then Pink Floyd, and then Iron Maiden, of course, for the heavy part of me. I mean, I got so much diversity, and then later on, I kind of fell in love with Prince, even the early Prince before he was really known. Uh, and then everything else, from there, just is what it is. I like all the modern bands, Matchbox 20, and they've been around a long time now. But my main influences growing up, no doubt, it all started from the Beatles, no doubt.
Yeah, cool, cool. Who actually got you into music? Was it a family member? Was it a friend, or was it something that you got into yourself?
Yep, I could definitely elaborate a little bit on that. My dad was a locally famous jazz musician. He played, I think, 11, possibly 12 instruments, and he was very schooled. He knew all the ins and outs of music theory, and he would get called sometimes for the piano. He would get called for the bass guitar, the trombone, the violin, and he made pretty much his living on a local level um, with music. So there was always instruments lying around the house, and then my sisters with the Beatles and things like that, and so I was always exposed to music, and I just got into playing a little bit of everything. It was those were the pre-internet days, and and I just spent all my moments banging on the piano and mandolins, and it kind of made me well rounded. And my first bands, I was a drummer, and when it came to like songwriting, we wanted to be an original band. I would actually sing the melodies and write the lyrics, being a drummer. And then I just said I might as well switch to guitar at this point, and then it all spawned off of that. And I always kept my ability to play a lot of instruments, but I'm not really proficient on all of them. Guitar, I'm good. I could sing. I could play drums really well. Everything else is kind of like hit and miss, but I get it done if it's needed. But I would say my strongest instruments are definitely singing, guitar playing, and then drums maybe third.
Cool, cool. So, who actually inspired you to become a sort of like a musician? Was it your dad, or was it somebody from the Beatles, or was it somebody from Led Zeppelin? Uh,
I mean, my dad was a jazz guy, and I was born in '63, so I was growing up more in the rock age. So I got to say, it was definitely Paul McCartney. From the Beatles. I loved his writing. I loved his voice. I love John Lennon too. Don't get me wrong, but I think I tend more to go toward Paul. So I got to say, it was definitely the Beatles, and then a couple years later, when Zeppelin, I was really getting introduced to them. I was really into Led Zeppelin and the heavier, slightly prog kind of sound they had. Um, yeah, but I got to say, it was between my dad and him always playing, and the Beatles for sure. That was my total inspiration.
oh, cool, cool. Uh, you said earlier that you were in a couple of bands like earlier on. What other bands were you in prior to actually starting up Red Moon Jam?
The first band, I was 16 years old. I was a drummer. The first band I played was a band called Paradox, and I didn't come up with that cool name. It was actually off a Kansas record, the Point of No Return album. And at that time, I was, heavily into Rush, still Zeppelin, still the Beatles, of course, but I was getting into the more progressive movement. So I was a drummer in that band for maybe like 4 or 5 years. And then I was in a band where I switched from the drums to guitar, was a band called True Rumor. And that was an original slash cover band. Back then, which this might come more toward the advice later on, but back then we tried to merge cover songs with a few originals, and that never works. You got to be one or the other. There's like really no in between. But those were my early bands. Like True Rumor was my first real me being a guitar player and a little bit of a singer back then, and getting off the drums. Then I got into an all original band after cutting my teeth on that for maybe 5 or 6 years. A band called B Job, Bejobe, and it was a kind of like, I would say, a spiritual metal band, metal slash funk. We were really heavy, and funky, and I was in that band for 7 years. One of the principal songwriters, along with Lisa Landone, who is an incredible bass player and great songwriter and singer. And we spent 7 years really trying hard to get signed and make it. And we have come close, but we didn't get there. And, as time goes by, you kind of lose interest in trying to make it. And I just kind of settled into the fact that I'll write original music on my own. If somebody needs it for a project, they can use it. And then I'll just be in a cover band and kind of like just make some noise that way. And I started it kind of organically and small time, but we're pretty popular. I play out about 2 or 3 times a month, and that's a lot for a cover band. And we have a pretty good following. So I know I'm kind of all over the place here, but these are just the thoughts coming to my mind as you're asking me the questions. I hope that answers it.
Yeah. Cool. So with Red Moon Jam, What have they been up to? Especially over these last, say, year or so.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part of that. Kind of like it
Uh,
beeped out or something.
yeah, with Red Jam, with Red Moon Jam, what have they been up to, especially over the last year or so?
Oh, okay. I mean, we play pretty much every chance we get, as long as all the members of the band can make it. We'll play festivals. We'll play a lot of fundraisers. I love charity events, raising money for like cancer research or any kind of domestic abuse or things like that. I like to get paid too, but I love to definitely help out in the communities. We've been playing, a lot of nightclubs and a lot of breweries, and sometimes they'll ask for us to be acoustic, Red Moon Jam instead of electric. And we've been pretty busy. 2023 was probably the busiest year of this band, and it's been around maybe 5, 6 years. And 2023 was our absolute busiest year, and we're already getting multiple booked throughout 2024. I'm pretty fortunate, and I'm blessed, and I'm lucky that I could still have fun with music and stay busy and occupied and still write original music off to the side, which is cool.
Cool. So, are you doing sort of like any sort of like solo projects type of thing, or are you going to
Yep.
be sticking with like?
No, I do. I do a lot of. Sometimes I'll do acoustic guitar solo gigs, and I'll put my instrumentals, not instrumentals. I'm sorry, my originals into that format. Sometimes I can infuse a few originals because some of the originals did get airplay. There's two songs, as a matter of fact, that were standout on my first CD, which is called "Pieces of Me," and it was recorded in 2003. And that one had two songs that got a lot of Connecticut radio station airplay. It's called, what is it called? Oh, Rear View Mirror. Rear View Mirror. And then I had another song that got a lot of local airplay, as well as a few stations in Rhode Island, one station in South Carolina, and one station, I don't even know what these are called anymore, uh, one in California, and they played in rotation a song called "Looking for Me." Those songs could be found on Apple iTunes. You type in my name, Peter, last name Lucibelli. A slew of songs will come up, and you could find the Pieces of Me, the first CD, and I did a second CD in 2009. And these are all self released. I did all the graphics and had people help out with graphics, but I did all the mixing, recording, mastering. I played all the instruments on them. And on the second CD, I had a few people. Lisa Landone from my band B Job, I had her perform some parts on the CD, and I credit her where that's needed. Um, but yeah, you can find me on Apple iTunes. You could find me on a station called Reverb Nation .com, and you could type in my name, and all my latest recordings will come up, and some remixes of those songs originally. So I'm on Spotify too. I'm pretty much all over the place where most original artists are these days that are unsigned. So hope that helps there.
Yeah. Cool. Are you looking to starting another band, like purely doing original music, or are you just sticking with Red Moon Jam?
Oh no, that's a great question. I mean, if a situation called for original music, and maybe some musicians wanted to get together that have gotten a lot further, maybe, or than I have, and wanted help songwriting, I absolutely would jump on that opportunity. Because at heart, most musicians, not all, some guys just go right in the cover bands and they're fine with that. But when you're a songwriter, you got a lot to say, and that's your true love. You want to get that material out and you want that to become popular. But reality is, not a lot of people want to necessarily hear original material unless you're already established and signed, and then it's something a little different. Um, but that said, I would take the opportunity in a heartbeat if it permitted it. Right now, unfortunately, the cover bands are what let you play out to a good amount of people, and they all know the songs. Again, like in my early parts of being an original musician, I would try to throw in after 5 or 6 songs of covers that people know. I would try to throw in an original song, and the fans that like me, the people that really like me, they would clap. Everyone else would be like, "What is that song?" So it's hard to mix the two. But yes, I would absolutely, if the situation was right, I would love to be an original band. Yes.
Cool, cool. So, yeah, you mentioned that you write original music. Would you write a song for a say a more established musician? Say for instance, say Iron Maiden comes to you and say, can you write us a song? Would you do it?"
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to do something like that. Yeah, if somebody again was like very established and was looking for, something catchy and they could describe what they're looking for, yes, I could capture that well. Which is why I've done a few of the independent films, and they didn't go too far. But I didn't expecting them to. But it was nice to get my name out in the credits. Yes, I absolutely would write for someone if they would like. I would co-write with someone if they would like. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool, cool. So, is there any sort of like gigs or tours that you're planning, whether it be for Red Moon Jam or for your solo stuff?
Um, I missed the first. I got the last part of it. I kind of lost you a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
Is that say that again?
Is there any gigs or tours coming up where with either with your solo stuff or with your or with Red Moon Jam?
Oh yes, tons, uh, tons of both. Yes, I'm doing a lot of the bar circuit with happy hours. They want me acoustic. So in a situation like that, that's something where you're kind of background. Some people listen to you, other people are just talking loudly, trying to burn off the weekend for happy hour. So I'll throw a lot of originals in there, and and then some people might come up to me later and say, "Oh my God, what was that song?" And they might hum a few words to it, and I'd say that's an original, not a cover. But yeah, I have several gigs throughout 2024 as a solo acoustic artist, as well as a lot of 2024 bookings for Red Moon Jam. And I wouldn't say really a tour because we all hold down full time jobs, but it's we're getting booked and then in the future booked. But it's all the club circuit, all the local pubs, the breweries, the wineries in the summer, things like that. So we just kind of shift based on what we need. Usually wineries, they want an acoustic. They don't want you blowing them out there. It's a different kind of vibe. So in the summer, we'll set up. The drummer will have a bunch of percussion and a cajon, and I'll have my harmonica and my guitar and sing, and the whole band goes acoustic. It's pretty cool. And we'll do a bunch of classic rock favorites, Rolling Stones, Beatles, etc. All through the years. And yeah, it's basically, yeah, I wish I could say it was a nice, big, long, drawn out tour, but no, it's basically the local club circuit and all the wineries and breweries. That's who's hiring musicians at this point in time.
Yeah, cool, cool. You've mentioned the social media side of things, which I put the links to to Red Moon Jam Facebook and Instagram down in the description there. So if anybody wants to check her out, check them out there. So this
Yep.
is
Go ahead.
so
I'm sorry.
it's a sorry. So this is going to be my sort of like last question before we start wrapping things up. Uh,
Okay.
my last question is: any advice for people who want to become a musician?
Okay. That's a deep, loaded, good question. Okay. I'll start with saying this: if you go into it with the mindset of you want to become proficient on your instrument, you want to have fun, you want to be as great as you can, that's great. A lot of people today are what we call bedroom players. In my days of being young, there was no such thing as a bedroom player. Like if you go into any kind of guitar store today, you'll notice the amps are way smaller than they used to be. That's not by accident. It's because the music industry, for the most part, has shifted from old guys like me still playing out to people kind of sitting in the rooms or making a video for YouTube. It's a whole different way of thinking. In my day, it was to get in the basement and make a lot of noise with your friends, but with the hopes of getting out in front of people. I run into so many young kids today, and they don't even have a desire to play out in front of anybody. They just want to sit in the room and play. And these kids are monster players. They're not crappy. They're great. They're phenomenal. And so I don't know. The advice I would give it, I don't know if it would ring true to the young kid today, but I would say just get great on your instrument. Keep a level head. Don't get infected with any ego. Keep real. Keep honest. Keep what's true to you. Be as great as you can, and put your name out there. And if your desire is to be in a band and play out, you'll find that. You'll definitely get that. If your desire is to stay in a bedroom and play, you might have people asking you to be in a band, but you might not want to. So I don't know. Just follow your heart, whatever your heart is telling you. My heart is a live performance. I love playing live. Me sitting in a room playing doesn't do anything for me. But being out in front of people is what ignites me. So, my advice, if I could take myself back a few years, I think my advice to myself would be stop playing by feel as much and learn a little bit more about music theory, because I never learned music theory. I just have that natural ability, and a lot of it I think is from my dad, where I just kind of absorbed music, but I never knew why. So I would say study your instrument and do what your heart is telling you. If it's telling you to play out, then be that performer. And if it's telling you to be great and make YouTube videos, well, then so be it. That's what you do. That's the best advice I could give, I think.
Cool. Sound advice. Sound advice. So, we start wrapping things up. So, any last words before before we sign off?
Uh, I will just say this. Christina told me you were really cool and you did great podcast interviews. And I'm very happy that selected me and chose me for this. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I thank you for your time. And hey, man, just keep rocking, because music has kept me out of trouble for the most part. I could have been on the streets and been a punk like a lot of people and wound up on the wrong side of the track, so to speak. But you know what? Music kept me always believing in something more, something great. So, yeah, that's all I got to say. Just follow your heart, stay with what you love. And I thank you for your time, brother.
My pleasure, Peter. And yeah, a big shout out to Christina. She's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's cool. I will. I hope she gets a chance to hear this podcast.
Yeah, I think she might be actually listening in right now because there's a
Oh,
couple of
that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, she's
yeah,
cool, and yeah, she said you were great. So I just want to thank you for having me. I hope I was beneficial and helped out in some way. Somebody out there listening maybe can get something from this. But yeah, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
yeah. My pleasure there. My pleasure, Peter. So anyway, guys, we wrap things up there, and we'll catch you all later.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you around. If you ever want me for another interview, I'm in, buddy.
Right? Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah.
All right. You take care of yourself. Have a great holidays coming up in New Year. Be safe.
You too. You too.
All right. Take care, brother.
Bye.